On this episode, in a couple of days from when this is recorded, it will be 1 year since Judge Brett Kavanaugh became Justice Brett Kavanaugh. And I know it was a year ago now, and it tends to fade into everyone's memories, even though, liberals and Democrats are constantly talking about, they still haven't let that go just as much as they haven't let go of 2016. So they're even talking about impeaching Kavanaugh as well as, President Trump. And we'll talk about that as well. But we're going to talk with Mollie Hemingway and Carrie Severino about their book, Justice on Trial. And I guess some other things as well. All this on this episode of Trend Chat.
From the highways of America, here's the podcast where we talk politics, a little entertainment, some culture, and this and that, from the road to your ears. This is Trend Chat with your host, Brian Bledsoe.
And welcome to another episode of Trend Chat. I am your host, Brian Bledsoe. And if you want to connect with us, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or Snapchat, or TikTok. It's all the same name, at Trend Chat 24/7. Man, that was a rough end to the intro. Okay. But, I appreciate everyone listening. Just want to say off the top, we're here on trendchat247.com and also available on most popular podcast outlets. And, like, share, and subscribe. Actually, I wasn't going to actually talk about this because I don't know. So as I mentioned about social media, Facebook, Instagram, and all of those, as of right now, as of this recording. So, if you noticed on the Facebook page, I haven't posted since September 27th, I think. That's not because I haven't been trying. So as of right now, like I said, as of this recording, I am, blocked from posting on my Facebook page. So I can post everywhere else. Facebook has chosen to restrict my publishing abilities, as they say, because, mainly because I share too much content, basically. That's what I got from it. And I've been trying to get a better answer and seeing where, when I'm going to be able to post again. But I wasn't going to mention about this because, it's, I don't even know what's going to come of it. So, but yeah, so if you see not a lot of activity, hopefully it would not last too much longer. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a week. I don't know. They didn't even say how long it's going to be. They just said temporarily. They didn't say how long. It could be indefinite for all I know. But yeah, just letting you know for the people, I guess, who are on the Trend Chat Facebook page about that. But I know it's been some time since we've been on. But before we get into all that, just want to mention this in particular. I know you heard about 1776united.com. I've mentioned them plenty of times, with their shirts and mugs and all that. But I'm mentioning this because we have something new that I want to mention because, yes, 1776united.com. You can go there and get, all the mugs and the shirts and all the other accessories, great patriotic gear. But the code has changed. So I'm not even going to mention the old code. Just in case for the people maybe listening to this for the first time. I'm not even going to mention the old code anymore. The code now is guess what? It's Trend Chat. That's it. The name of the show. That's the code. So if you go to 1776united.com, put in the code Trend Chat, you get 20% off on whatever you get there. And look, there's plenty to get. So check them out, 1776united.com. And so also trumpmug.com, all the Trump centric gear you can find. I just mentioned this off the top of my head mainly because I just saw something else from on the website. But yeah, I'll probably mention that again. But yeah, like I said, it's been a while, and I want to mention that that's something that happened in the past week or so, that changed with the promo codes, I guess. So one thing that happened last week that we didn't really talk about, which I'm not going to get too much into, but this whole the little girl from Sweden, the Greta Thunberg, and having her little climate speech, and she was hot as far as trending on social media. Haven't heard much about her this week. I mean, isn't it funny how fast stories just come and go? But I know a lot of people were pointing out the fact that she basically is a pawn, a political pawn for these environmentalists and people who want to basically force their climate restrictions on everyone. So they want to basically take control of everyone's lives through climate change in the name of quote unquote saving the earth. And they'll use someone like Greta to get people to feel sympathetic because she's a child. And it was funny seeing how people were so ready to defend Greta against any sort of criticism. Not even where they were being derogatory towards her, just being critical about what she's talking about. And they wouldn't have that either. And it was just so funny because they wanted to bring up the fact that, oh, she's a child. How dare you, criticize a child? She's just saying what she believes and all that. And yet these are the same people who wouldn't lift a finger to what was going on with what's her name, Ava Martinez, the one that was the mini AOC. She was doing a parody of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She was just doing just a parody of her, and she got just harassed and bullied all over Twitter in particular, to the point to where she got rid of her account. But they didn't, those same people that are defending Greta didn't mention anything about that back then. And now I know people have mentioned about when they talk about Greta and talking about that people shouldn't use children for political speech. Now, I'm not a fan of that in particular at all. So you could say something Minnie AOC, I mean, she was doing a form of political speech, although it's parody, but it's still political speech. And I'm not a fan of it in general, regardless of if I agree with it or not. So like with Ava, she was doing a parody of Ocasio-Cortez. So I thought it was funny, but at the same time, I still had that same cringiness that I have just seeing a child commentate on politics. Just it's a little uneasy, and so I feel that way either way, regardless of if I agree or disagree with whoever the child is really and what they're talking about. So, but like I said, that story has really just kind of disappeared. So let's get off of that and get on to something more trend worthy. Actually, it was on, I guess this was the same, going on around the same time, was everything with impeachment. But before we get into that, let's hear a word from our friends with the Founding Project, and we'll be back in a couple of seconds as I am sitting around trying to stall before I find the next spot to play. Yes, I'm just letting you in, just pulling the curtain back. So yeah.
Commentary as subtle as a sledgehammer. This is Trend Chat.
Hello, Trend Chat listeners. If you like the Founding Project's Civics Education video series, Civics for All Ages, and our educational meme series, we think you will love our new website. Join us at thefoundingproject.com and be a part of the civics movement. The Founding Project is a 501c3 education nonprofit. Please join us today.
This is Dana Lash, and you're listening to Trend Chat.
I must say that's one of my favorite beats. I don't know if I played that in a while, but so welcome back. That was what, less than a minute, but it's just funny because I'm just thinking about if I was timing this out for a radio, I don't know, because that's one thing about doing podcasts. You don't really have to worry about time as far as having to go in and out and yeah, but anyway, let's talk a little bit about impeachment. We're not going to go all into it because, for one, last week it was just an inquiry. That's all it was. The way it was covered, they made it seem like it was going to be a vote right then and there, and by this week he'll be out of office. That's how it was reported. But it was nothing, because, like I said, it's not even a vote, or not even. I guess it was pointing toward a vote at some time, but no specified time. It was just an inquiry. That's it. So it was funny by seeing this, because I'm thinking back to back when Bill Clinton was impeached by the House, and so. I mean, honestly, this is basically going to be just the Clinton impeachment in reverse. Just switch sides. So you probably already seen the clips of Democrats who were in Congress, who are still in Congress now, which, if that's not a case for term limits, I don't know what. I mean, you were seeing clips of Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi, Jared Nadler, all of them when they were in Congress back then, and what they were saying about when everything was going on with President Clinton getting impeached. And so, like I said, everything that you heard back then, you could just basically take that word for word and put an R behind it, and that's what Republicans are going to be saying about Trump. And then you can flip it around as far as what the Republicans were saying about Clinton, and just take that word for word and put that to what the Democrats are going to say about Trump. Now, it's probably, I'm pretty sure it's an oversimplification of it, but I think it's pretty accurate. And I think the vote will go the same way. As far as, so you will have the House, if they even put this to a vote, I wouldn't be surprised if the House actually impeached President Trump, because the House is in the Democrats' hands. So if all the Democrats vote, then that will be it. Similar to back when, in Clinton impeachment, it was, controlled by Republicans. It'll be the same way this time. Except, like I said, it'll be just in reverse. Because, so yeah, it wouldn't shock me one bit if they put it to a vote and and voted to impeach, even though, again, it would just go the same way, that it would be, he would be found not guilty in the Senate. And so that will be it. And just as much as I know, a lot of times we as conservatives, every time we bring up Bill Clinton, like we're quick to want to bring up. So I watched there was a documentary called Scandalous on Fox Nation, just talking about the whole, everything for Whitewater and the impeachment and all that about, President Clinton at that time. And, there was one line in there that I thought was kind of funny, because it said, I forgot who said it though, but saying that, his impeachment, President Clinton being impeached would forever be in his obituary, whenever he passes away, which I thought was kind of funny. I mean, it depends on who's writing the obituary, really. And I'm pretty sure, let's put it this way. When that time happens, whenever, who knows when, but when it happens, because, no one living forever, let's put it that way. So the media, I'm pretty sure, will still be probably, full of the same people, the over 90% of people who were most likely who were Clinton supporters. They're going to be the ones that are going to be writing the obituaries, or at least the ones that are going to be reporting. And I'm pretty sure impeachment is not going to be that high on their list as far as when they're talking about the life of Bill Clinton. As far as now, if a Republican's writing the obituary, then yeah, it's probably gonna be in the second line, if not in the first line, in the first sentence somewhere. But that's most likely that's not going to be the case. It's going to be it's going to be the mainstream media, and they're going to barely mention that. So now flip that around. Let's say, for instance, if, like I said, if Democrats actually hold a vote and they go out and they would impeach President Trump, those same people that will be reporting on President Clinton, that would be in the first line in the media, mainstream media. So the mainstream media would report it for President Trump. They'll mention that that would be the first thing they'll mention. The third president in American history who was impeached, at the time, whenever President Trump passes away, that they'll mention that if that happens. But like I said, for President Clinton, they're not going to mention that. That's going to be so far down in the obituary. It was just funny when I heard that in the documentary. So, but yeah, that's not going to happen. But, and like I said, all this is basically going to be the same old same. Whatever you saw back then, again, just watch what happened with the Clinton impeachment, and you'll probably be set. You probably won't have to watch none of this, because it's going to go down the same way. The only difference is you're going to have 2020 coming up, and so depending on if they actually do the vote before 2020, before the election in 2020, okay, there could be something. It could be some difference there as far as maybe that hurts President Trump's chances to get reelected because of this. That being said, just heard news about that as far as at least his support in the Republican Party, because he had a record of $125 million in fundraising in the third quarter. So all this impeachment talk has really fired up, the base, which makes sense. I know myself, I got a whole bunch of text messages about fundraising when it came down to the last days for the quarter, saying, hey, I think I got a text like every couple of hours. but I understand what they're doing. So, all of them do that. All of the candidates do that because they're all trying to raise money. So, but, so we're going to get to our interview with, with Mollie Hemingway and Carrie Severino coming up next. So first we're going to hear a word from Politics, and after that we'll get to our interview.
It's Trend Chat.
Hello, this is Brian Bledsoe, host of Trend Chat, also contributor at Politichicks.com. Here to tell you about the new book called Politichicks, a Clarion Call to Political Activism, with over 300 pages from contributors like myself, talking about topics such as education, social issues, healthcare, the Second Amendment, and of course, activism. I encourage you all to check it out at Politichicks.com, and is also available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Hey guys, this is John Miller with Blaze TV. You are listening to Trend Chat with Brian Bledsoe.
Hello, this is Trend Chat, and we are very pleased to have Mollie Hemingway with us and Carrie Severino with us. Mollie is the senior editor at The Federalist and a Fox News contributor, and Carrie is the chief counsel and policy director of Judicial Crisis Network. So, how are you both doing?
We're doing great.
Hi, great to be here.
So, for people that don't know, I guess, Mollie, tell us about The Federalist.
The Federalist is a web magazine that covers politics, policy, and culture. We publish daily at thefederalist.com. We've been operating for about 6 years, and we are pleased to have hundreds of writers who hit the issues of the day.
And the Judicial Crisis Network.
Yeah, we're an organization dedicated to ensuring that judges who are faithful to the law and the Constitution get confirmed to the federal courts and get on the state courts as well. And so we were playing a key role in the Kavanaugh confirmation and helping get Justice Kavanaugh confirmed.
All right, so we have you on because mainly you have a new book out called Justice on Trial, the Kavanaugh Confirmation and the Future of the Supreme Court. So I guess either one of you, what would be like a quick summary of the book?
The book really just tells the inside story of the Kavanaugh confirmation from the moment that Justice Kennedy retires from the Supreme Court to that last moment where Justice Kavanaugh is confirmed and is placed on the Supreme Court. We interviewed more than 100 people, including the President, the Vice President, Supreme Court justices, senators, and others who gave us just an unbelievable detail about what was happening behind the scenes during this contentious battle last year.
Yeah, and we wanted to make sure that while this crazy confirmation process is fresh in Americans' minds, that we got the real facts out there. I clerked for Justice Clarence Thomas, and I remember from his confirmation process that it's not something that after he was confirmed, the left just let it all go. They actually started going back and rewriting history effectively, so that when people nowadays think about the process, they don't realize that in fact there's no support for her allegations either. And we wanted to make sure that those facts were out there to try to stop the revisionist history from taking root after the Kavanaugh confirmation.
Yeah, and I guess that timeline will be like from July to October around that time?
The Justice Kennedy retired at the end of June, and Justice Kavanaugh, then Judge Kavanaugh, was nominated in July and finally confirmed in October.
Yeah, it's funny. That's just a couple of months, but I tell you, back then, that felt like forever. I mean, as doing a podcast, I think I did 5 episodes. I do a weekly podcast, so like 5 episodes talking about different little aspects of everything that was going on in confirmation. And one thing in particular that I was interested in hearing, so we're here at the Texas Seminole Summit for Heritage Action, and I just finished hearing both of them speaking. And one thing that I heard is that when you had groups come to members of Congress, or senators come to their offices, and you had tons of liberal groups out there definitely getting a lot of press time and getting shown. Then it seemed like they were the only ones there. And I noticed that y'all mentioned that you had plenty of conservative women there that were being ignored, like actively ignored by the media. So I guess tell us a little bit about that. I mean, well, I guess that's covered in the book as well.
Yeah, it's all. It's one of the interesting stories we uncovered in the book. First of all, the aspect of how coordinated and calculated the campaign on the left was. These protesters who were standing up and getting arrested during the hearings, the first set of hearings even, weren't just there spontaneously. They were being flown in from key states like Alaska. That's a serious plane ticket. They were being given coordinated costumes, the handmaids' costumes in particular. They were trained in legal training and how to get arrested, and they were given bail money for when they were arrested. One of the women who was helping coordinate it from these groups actually said, "This isn't chaos. This is all scripted." And I thought that was very telling that she was willing to acknowledge that. And this is something that then the press covered in nonstop, wall-to-wall coverage of that, as if it represented just a national movement. What a lot of people didn't see, and sometimes was actively ignored, were the real Americans who many times were taking off work and coming. They weren't getting flown in. They weren't getting that kind of support from certainly the liberal infrastructure was providing, but they also weren't being loud and screaming. There were many people who were going into offices just saying, "We're praying for what you senators are doing," and trying to make reasoned, calm arguments. And while that wasn't maybe getting as much press time, we learned from talking to senators that was something that was very influential to many of those senators, that they saw the significance of those real voices.
I know for me personally, because I'm a truck driver, and I tried to drive down there. I wasn't able to make it because I know Heritage Action was doing some things as well, and that was just really something that kind of was eye opening, at least to hear, which is not surprising, but just unfortunate.
But I do think it's important for people to remember how influential the American people were in having the Kavanaugh confirmation succeed. You had so many forces arrayed against him, but you also had people who just looked at it and said, this isn't fair. In this country, we believe in presumption of innocence, that people are innocent until proven guilty, that if you make an accusation, you need evidence in support of it before you convict someone. And even though many people in the media and politics weren't caring about it, I think average Americans very much cared about it, and they helped carry that nomination battle through.
Okay, and I know one thing I was thinking about when it came down to during this whole debacle in a way is another thing that y'all mentioned in the panel was about Senator Feinstein as far as her essentially not following protocol, and I guess give us a little for the people who maybe not know what happened in that.
Right. There's an established process in the Senate for how to handle it if someone makes an accusation against a nominee. This has been around for a very long time. Every senator knows it, particularly Senator Dianne Feinstein. When she got the letter, she should have put the letter through that. When she got the letter accusing Brett Kavanaugh of sexual assault, she should have put that letter through the process. It protects the accuser, the accused. Instead, she put the accuser in contact with an attorney known for running high-profile PR campaigns against people, and she circumvented the process. And this is something, if you put it through the proper process, you can have the FBI look into it, you can ask questions of the nominee in private. If you don't go through the process, pretty much the only way to get it out is through what we saw, which is this horrible media circus and whatnot. A lot of people were very frustrated. A lot of Dianne Feinstein's colleagues were frustrated that she circumvented that proper process that the Senate has in place and instead chose to make a circus out of it.
And I think it's also interesting that that's one of the processes that was initiated after Justice Thomas's own confirmation hearings, and that the fact that she ignored it was significant to some of those key votes in the Senate, like Susan Collins, that when she saw, oh my goodness, this letter was in the possession of Senator Feinstein for over a month and she did nothing with it, that was an immediate red flag. She still wanted to look into the allegations and make sure that there wasn't anything to them, but they kind of started her out thinking, is this really something for real, or is this a political hit?
Now, I was able to read at least an excerpt because, personally, I just got the book today. I tried my best to skim as fast as I could when I found out I was able to interview, but I came across an excerpt that I've read before, and I kind of wanted to bring up as far as, because I think anyone that was following this story saw about Senator Flake getting basically cornered by protesters. That was what most people saw. But there was another cornering kind of that was going on. And hold on, let me look this up because I don't know how to say this. The atrium? I mean, yeah, that's my first time seeing anteroom. So that's why I was like, So that was something that most people don't hear about, but is in the book.
So the anteroom is the room outside of the Senate Judiciary hearing room. So everyone can see what's happening in the Judiciary hearing room, but nobody can see what's happening in the anteroom. So in the hearing room, you saw people giving speeches and whatnot. And one Democratic senator was trying to persuade Senator Flake not to vote in favor of the Kavanaugh confirmation. In the anteroom, those two senators, Chris Coons and Jeff Flake, were inside of a very tiny phone booth where Chris Coons was trying to convince Flake to demand an additional week of an FBI investigation in exchange for his vote. He succeeded in doing that. We had all these other senators that were also trying to weigh in and keep Flake from making this agreement. You had other senators who were yelling at each other about some of the antics that we just discussed, with Senator Dianne Feinstein having this letter and not sharing it with them. You had another senator, Senator Hatch, inside the bathroom trying to call the American Bar Association over a flap that had erupted there. And you had people so upset with each other that some senators actually almost came to physical blows, to actual fighting, people stepping on each other's feet and spit flying everywhere. And so we tell the story about what that was like. It's a really small area, and there were so many people crammed into this small area, and it was pretty funny.
Yeah, it was fun talking to the staffers who were there, because by the end of having heard how crazy this story was a few times, we just started by asking people, is this really as crazy as we have heard? And they would just say, no, it's crazier.
No, so for Carrie, I wanted to ask, because you clerked for Justice Clarence Thomas, and so I guess what are the parallels between Justice Thomas and now with Justice Kavanaugh?
Yeah, it was actually shocking to go back in the light of Kavanaugh and reread this. In fact, my daughter recently read his autobiography, and she said, I felt like I was just reading she knew Justice Kavanaugh's story first, and she goes, I felt like I was reading this whole thing again. I mean, everything down from the first attempts to attack him were really about having document fights and trying to ask for oppressive numbers of documents, with misconstruing his judicial record, the same things to Justice Kavanaugh. And then when all of those relatively tame methods didn't succeed, that's when we saw the allegations come out. And just like with Christine Blasey Ford, it was allegations that initially went to a member of the committee and then were leaked by a Democrat, someone on the committee. We still haven't ever, even there was a Senate investigation at that point, I've never found out who. It was initially said that they would keep it quiet. And then, of course, it blew up into a circus of a hearing. And it was similarly to these ones. It was something that was not corroborated in any way. And that, in fact, many of the women who knew him and who knew both of them at the time testified and said, this doesn't add up. This does not make sense with the man we know, with the experience that we had with her. And after he was confirmed, 2-1, black, white, men and women said, we believe Thomas over Hill. And my concern is that since then, I think there has been a drumbeat of rewriting history, of people in the media telling you that's not what really happened, and trying to make Anita Hill into the hero of that story. I don't think that's a fair representation. And so I'm concerned that doesn't happen like that to Justice Kavanaugh. I think the other really fascinating thing that we uncovered was learning that as they both were going through this real crucible in their lives, some of the same Bible passages that they were praying about came back. So Justice Kavanaugh's wife was praying the prayer of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, let this cup pass from me. And we learned that Justice Thomas was praying the same thing during his confirmation hearings, or the same passage that Kavanaugh had read at church the day before, from Corinthians, the day before he was nominated, the day he found out he was going to be nominated, about power being made perfect in weakness. Justice Thomas was also meditating on and praying on during his final hearing with Anita Hill. So I think the parallels really run wide and deep.
I guess the subtitle will be, one part is the future of the Supreme Court. So with everything that just happened with in these confirmations last year, do you think this is the new normal for confirmations go on?
Unfortunately, I think it is the new normal, and one of the things Carrie and I show in the book is that it's particularly true that you're going to see tough confirmation battles when a judge is nominated to fill a seat that is being vacated by someone on the left or a swing vote. If it's a conservative for conservative replacement, it's less likely to see this. You're less likely to see these type of antics. This has all sorts of repercussions, including people might not be willing to serve as Supreme Court nominees, knowing that what they're going to have to go through, or even worse, maybe they're willing to do it, but they know they can't put their family through it. So it's important that people be held accountable for these types of smears and unsubstantiated allegations so that it doesn't become the new normal. And it's also important for the Supreme Court itself to not be political in its rulings. Part of the reason why people care so much about Supreme Court nominations is because the court has allowed itself to become a legislature of 9 people that decides to force issues that are extra constitutional. And if the court wants to keep its legitimacy and not be such a political location, they need to understand that their role is fairly limited, that it is simply to decide whether legislation is constitutional or not.
So, but before I ask for social media where everyone can find you, I had one particular question for you, Mollie, because I am a listener to the Fairless podcast, and one of the most recent episodes, I guess you were talking about appreciating art from someone that maybe don't agree with your politics. I guess kind of saying like if you can't appreciate someone's art if they disagree with your politics, it's kind of like a shallow life or something like that. Okay.
If you made it where you had to agree with someone's politics in order to enjoy their art, unfortunately, the artistic community is such as it is right now that you would almost not be able to listen to any music or see any movie or watch any TV show, which is not to say that you shouldn't care about the message that's in these things. You should care and make sure that you're not filling your mind with ugly or awful things, but unfortunately it's just the way that the situation is now that agreement with artists would severely constrain what you can listen to or enjoy.
Well, on the podcast we talk about film and culture a lot, so that's when I heard that. That's something I wanted to ask you. I didn't think I'll get a chance to ask you about it, but in that sense, I know I agree with you too, but I guess one thing I think about is that it's kind of hard to fully enjoy their art, especially if it's involved in their art.
Well, particularly with how obnoxious people are getting now. So, I mean, even just Peter Fonda died recently, great actor. He says horribly vicious things on his Twitter feed, just disgusting, awful things about people whose politics he didn't share. It does affect your ability to enjoy people. And I myself have found it where I just find myself turning off shows or just no longer supporting artists because they've made it quite clear that they are intolerant of other people.
Yeah, I'm someone that watch movies and everything and try to enjoy it. I know personally because it gets kind of difficult, like I said, especially if their politics is involved in their work. So it's just something I definitely want to talk about real quick. But if people want to contact you, either both of you on social media, where would it go?
Yeah, judicialnetwork.com is JCN's website, and I am on Twitter at JCN Severino.
And for me, Mollie Hemingway, you can read my work at thefederalist.com, and I am on Twitter at MZ Hemingway.
All right, so the book is Justice on Trial, the Kavanaugh Confirmation, and the Future of the Supreme Court. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, thanks to Mollie and Carrie for joining us. And again, the book is Justice on Trial. So check it out where books are sold. And again, thanks to them for coming on. So, and before we get into any more, just wanted to mention about, as I mentioned earlier, right now, and talking about all this impeachment talk and everything with TrumpMug.com if you want to check them out. Again, like I said, all sorts of Trump-centric flags and mugs, of course. I mean, it had to be mugs, if anything, because the name of the website is Trump Mug, so it has to have mugs. But yeah, go check them out, TrumpMug.com. And, all these codes are getting a lot simpler now. So, again, the code is just Trend Chat, and you get 10% off on whatever you want. On the site. to get 10% off. So check them out at trumpmug.com. So before we get to the end of our show here, I do want to mention two other things. One, well, I mentioned that one. That's a little more serious. I'll wait till the end of that. But this whole thing, I don't know if you heard. So Rashida Tlaib, representative up in I forgot what state already, but representative, it doesn't matter. At least for this, it doesn't. Oh yeah, it had to be Michigan. So because it was in Detroit, so I guess it's in Michigan. So yeah, Representative Tlaib was there, and I guess she was touring the station in Detroit, and was coming across some facial recognition software or whatever, and the police chief was explaining it to her how it works and whatever. Anyway, long story short, she makes the comment saying that, this is not verbatim, but there should be non-African Americans in charge of the facial recognition, because no. It should be African Americans in charge of of the facial recognition software, because non-African American people think all African Americans look the same. And to that, I would just say, not that. I couldn't find a laugh track. Where is it? There it is. I should have thought about that, but before I started, because I was, yeah. I mean, that is just ridiculous. To make it seem like black people can't do the same. And I've heard black people make that claim, kind of say the same thing about white people. Mainly because, this kind of goes into who you're familiar with, who are you around a lot. The more you're around certain people, the more you can tell, you can distinguish the little details about people, just like your family, really. I mean, more about how you can tell, the people in your family, the people that you live with in your house, a lot more than someone else, even your next door neighbor in comparison. So it just all comes down to the people that you're around. So if black people are all just around black people, then yeah, they can easily kind of distinguish from which black person to another black person, as opposed to if they're come across a few white people here and there, they tend to look all the same in particular, shapes and whatever. So you kind of like, you're not really familiar with all the little, little details. So anyway, in that, she also made a reference, right? She made a reference to two people, of all people that she's going to mention in trying to make this point. She mentions Elijah Cummings and John Lewis, and saying that, I see it all the time where people say, call Elijah Cummings John Lewis, and John Lewis Elijah Cummings, and they're, completely different people. Have you seen both of them? Like, I know this is a podcast and you're going to hear it, but Google both of them. Google Elijah Cummings and Google John Lewis. Yeah, they look alike. It would be like if she wanted to make a better claim, even though it'd be still ridiculous, but she could say someone like myself. If someone said I was, John Lewis, and said John Lewis was me, okay, that's a problem, because we definitely don't look anything alike. But yeah, so that I just wanted to mention that, and because that was just so ridiculous. If you don't know, check that out, because it's laugh out funny, really, to be honest. But I thank everyone for listening, and I do want to end on this note a little bit, because we have been hearing about this trial that was going on in Dallas of Amber Geiger, who was the police officer who shot Botham John in his apartment, and so that trial is, has come to an end. She was sentenced to 10 years. And some people had a problem with that because they felt like it was too lenient. But on top of that, his brother, went up to the stand, and if you haven't heard it, you should listen to it for yourself. You look it up. And he basically just showed the forgiveness we should all have as Christians. And he said he had no hate for her, and he hoped that she would turn her life to Christ, and gave her a hug. So now this has really shown something, because the reaction that came after this from, I would just say, just a lot of black people in particular, the hashtag Black Twitter, really showed a lot, and it was disheartening and it was sad, because it really revealed that a lot of these black Christians in particular have, they really showed that they're more obsessed with the color of their skin than they are with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And it was sad to see that, really. But that is what this is really revealed. I mean, I know that's not going to get reported, but it's true. I mean, you see how vicious and how hateful they were to someone that is showing forgiveness. And look, I understand the circumstances that were going on. It's very difficult, but being a Christian is not taking the easy route. It's nothing easy about being a Christian. And it comes, to making hard decisions, and it comes down to really understanding what is most valuable. What is the chief end? Is to bring glory to God. And it's to want everyone to repent of their sin and believe and trust in the Lord Jesus Christ. That is what we should want, regardless of whatever happens. So I will say for myself, if I was the victim, if I was the person who was murdered, and I would want my loved ones, I would want whoever is listening right now to understand that regardless of what happens, if something happens to me, I want to the person that did it to me, I want that person, one, have them to be punished to whatever the fullest extent of the law, whatever happens. But regardless of what happens, whether the person gets off or if the person get convicted and goes to jail for life or whatever, regardless of what happens, I will still want that person that did that to me. I'm telling you that right now. You're hearing this on this podcast. I want that person to be in heaven. I will want to meet that person in heaven. I want them to repent of that sin. Their sins of not only what they did to me, but the sin of all the other sins in their life. I want them to repent of all that, and I would want them to be living in glory with me in heaven. That's what I want, regardless of what has happened to me or what they did to me, because that is what we as Christians should be wanting for everyone. So I appreciate everyone listening, and I just want to end it on that. And yeah, TrendChat247.com. That's what this is right here. That's where you're listening. And all, most popular podcast outlets. I keep wanting to say all, but it's not all. It's most of them though. So yeah, thank you for listening. And we don't have no clue about next week. So you just have to wait until just check out on social media about what's coming up next. So until then, we'll chat with you later.